Okay. Hi, Olga. I see
Oh,
everything is
yeah,
absolutely all right now. Great. So
finally.
very happy you're here with us, and we are waiting for another couple of minutes for. I can hear my voice twice. Okay. Do you hear me twice?
Yes, I can hear you.
And it's all right. Perfect. So because I heard my voice after
Oh, the sound is okay.
a while. Um, okay. So it was something with my computer actually. So I was hearing my voice twice, but it was something with me. So okay, let's wait for a minute. We are almost ready now. And people can attend from YouTube as well as always, and the recording will be available for the SLE members, the members of the Linguistic Society of Europe. And I think we are all ready. Let me make you presenter and everything so that you can be ready to share your screen in a while. And before that, let me say a few words as welcome words.
Maybe I can, well, I will try to share my screen.
You can start sharing,
Let's
and it is
check how it
working.
works.
Yes,
So
perfect.
you can
I
see
can
my
see
presentation. Good.
your presentation. Yes, we can see your presentation. Everything is absolutely all right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Olga. So, dear colleagues, friends, and students, I'm very happy to welcome you all to the first lecture of the second phase of the online series of lectures, Ukrainian Scholars in Athens, organized by the Linguistic Society of Europe, the Faculty of English Language and Literature, the MA program in English Language, Linguistics and Translation, and the Opora Center of the Ukrainian Community of Athens. Our online gathering again today demonstrates our continuous, without end and in any circumstances, essential, scientific, real support of our Ukrainian colleagues and of all people of Ukraine. As time passes, our collaboration with our Ukrainian colleagues and friends becomes stronger and more fruitful. We are happy, we are ready to establish a new platform, a new center, and a new project based on our strong collaboration. And our online lectures also continue with new webinars from colleagues from the Department of English Linguistics of the National Technical University of Ukraine today and on Wednesday, May 31st. Today, Dr. Olya Sokirska will offer us the first lecture of the second phase of the series of lectures, Ukrainian Scholars in Athens. Today's lecture is on sociolinguistic features of refusal utterances and the framework of the Kyiv School of Phonetics. Olya Sokirska will present the theoretical grounds of the study of sociolinguistic features of refusal utterances put forward by the Kyiv School of Phonetics. According to this perspective, language means interaction in refusal utterances, generation, and perception. The lecturer will also discuss synergetic models of the psychoenergetic mechanism of refusal utterances, generation, and actualization. We are very happy and honored that Olya Sokirska accepted our invitation. Olya Sokirska is senior lecturer at the National Technical University of Ukraine, Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute. The scope of her research includes the fields of general linguistics, English phonetics, cognitive phonetics, text linguistics, pragmatics, speech energetics. Her publications amount to 60 works of experimental and theoretical studies. Olga, we are delighted to be here with you, and we are looking forward to attending your lecture. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nikos. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to present the results of many years of work of Kyiv Phonetic School, and let me start with outlining the brief structure of today's lecture. So we will start with theoretical grounds of the study of social linguistic features of refusal utterances put forward by Kyiv School of Phonetics, and the first part will be divided into three sections. The energetic concept of Kyiv Phonetic School, I will describe briefly, well, the main idea, the main concept of this school, what we are doing. Well, then we will move to substantiation of refusal utterances, linguistic status, which I study. Then the influence of social cultural status of the speaker on the refusal utterances, actualization, and social linguistic peculiarities of prosodic organization of refusal utterances. And quite interesting parts of this lecture, it seems to me, language means interaction in refusal utterances, generation, and perception, and synergetic models of psychoenergetic mechanism of refusal utterances, generation, and actualization. Well, I will start with our Kyiv School of Phonetics. So our school carries out research within the framework of a brand new speech energetic theory as an interdisciplinary approach to the study of phonetic phenomena, whose conceptual and methodological grounds were elaborated by our school leader, Professor Alla Kalita. The starting point serving as a basis of speech energetic theory was a new theoretical principle of utterances, emotional and pragmatic potential, which was formulated by Alla Kalita. And the quintessence of speech energetic theory. So the keynote of this principle is that the emotional and pragmatic potential of any utterance remains unchangeable, and it is characterized by stochastic redistribution of its energy among the means of different language levels and extra-linguistic means. So all means of language, linguistic and extra-linguistic, take part in generation of emotional utterances. Actually, all utterances can be considered as emotional, but they have just different level of emotions. And it also has been emphasized that the accumulation, change, and redistribution of the emotional and pragmatic potential represents a specific form of a psychophysiological energy functioning in the individual's spiritual sphere, whose nature reflects a complex interrelationship between cognitive processes occurring in people's psychic sphere during speaking and thinking or thinking and speaking processes. The material of my research I studied refusal utterances as one of the most widely used type of emotional utterances, and the material of my research was an experimental corpus of dialogues containing refusal utterances voiced by British speakers and professional actors, which were selected from the works of English and American authors. So the total duration of the experimental material, covering 1,108 realizations of refusal utterances used in the context of specific communicative situations, was 6 and 5 hours. So the total length of material so lasted 6 and 5 hours. Well, and let's move on to the substantiation of refusal utterances and outlining their linguistic status. In the process of studying functional regularities of dialogue speech, linguistics always come across a number of new questions. And before doing the research, we had to answer what is an utterance and what is refusal utterance. So it was necessary for doing our experimental work. Existing definitions of the utterance status in general and refusal utterances in particular contain some semantic divergences, and they were not informative enough to create the basis for the phonetic experimental research of refusal utterances. So in some works, in some works and encyclopedias, the utterance is defined as a true or false thought expressed in the form of the narrative sentence, which at the same time is a unit of a communication being formed in accordance with the laws of language. Well, some scholars, some linguists state that being a relatively minimal integral unit of speech, the utterance is verbal sign or a specific sample of a sentence used in speech continuum. Well, the notion of utterance is defined by some scholars as a concrete realization of the sentence in the communicative situation. It is described as actualization, as being the language interaction by an individual act of its use. Well, as a result of comparison of different definitions of the notion of utterance, we gave our own definition, which is presented on the slide. So utterance is a thought materialized according to the laws of a definite language in the form of a sentence which, in accordance with its functional aim and due to its semantic integrity, conveys certain information. So it's general definition of the utterance. And the refusal utterance. We also analyzed all existing definitions of refusal of different types of utterances which express the refusal, and we gave the following definition. So the refusal utterance in my work is a unit of speech actualized in oral or written speech as a reaction to the speaker's query that expresses a negative response to the request, demand, offer, or suggestion, unwillingness to agree with something, to do, to accept, or allow something, or the addressee's refusal from something offered or avoiding to perform an action. And we consider this definition as the full definition, which meets the requirements of which met the requirements of my research. And I would like to tell you how all the analyzed dialogues were grouped. So we decided Moment. So you can see on this slide, you can see that all refusal utterances were grouped into 4 main categories according to the reasons which cause these refusals. So they were grouped according, these classes are I don't want to, I can but I don't want to, I want but I cannot, and I cannot. So you can see the process of how the examples of reasons which cause this each class of reason. Well, when there is a request, a phrase, a request, so the refusal happens due to some reasons, and these reasons are given as an example on this scheme in the picture. So it's a scheme of possible variants for generation by the consciousness of the addressee certain classes of refusal utterances. So if there is a reason I don't agree, it doesn't mean that this reason can is possible only in a class of reasons I don't want. It's just an example, so it can be so this reason may cause the refusal in any class of reason. So it's just a schematic representation. Well, before grouping all before grouping all utterances in these 4 main classes, we analyzed the researches which were research studies which were made done before me by Ukrainian and foreign scholars, and according to as to cognitive nature of refusal phenomena in communication, scientific information accumulated in linguistics shows the necessity to systematize the factors. But in works which were done before me, the refusals were grouped in only 3 categories. I will not do this, I don't want to do this, and I cannot do this. These constructions are grounded on the category of denial and respectively from the classes of refusal utterances, expressing the negative speaker's the speaker's attitude, the lack of interest, or impossibility to perform an action due to some circumstances or some beliefs, person's beliefs. Well, in other words, the authors who grouped refusal utterances before me, they followed the reasons to generate 3 classes of refusals, but considering the nature and differences of these reasons, it's not difficult to notice that the concept I do not want to and I will not do something are functionally very close in comparison with the concept I cannot do this. So that's why we grouped the utterances in 2 main classes, I cannot and I don't want to, but the reasons cannot be just I cannot and I don't want, and so we decided that it would be good to define 2 more categories. I can, but I don't want to, and I want, but I cannot. Well, on the next slide, you can see the classification of the main linguistic features of actualization of different kinds and types of refusal utterances. So all utterances, according to the class of reasons, were also analyzed by the following features. So all these features from this picture were taken into consideration also while auditory analysis. Well, and you can see the first feature, which was taken into consideration, is social linguistical status of the speaker. So each class, all the utterances of a certain class of reasons, for example, I don't want to, also was grouped according to the social cultural status of the speaker, high, middle, or low. Well, the next feature which was analyzed, communicative situation, formal or informal, because the refusal of the same speaker can be different in according to communicative situation. Well, the next one, interrelation of the speakers and recipients' social status. So higher, equal, and lower. Well, the next feature, the form of the refusal, explicit or implicit. This aspect was also analyzed in my work, and the form of refusal realization, verbal or non-verbal. Of course, since it was experimental phonetic study, we analyzed verbal refusals, which were expressed with the help of words. Non-verbal cannot be analyzed in phonetic study, but we defined also the refusals into these. We divided them into these two categories also. So the next one, communicative type of the sentence, which expresses the refusal. It was narrative, interrogative, imperative, or exclamatory. And the last feature, well, the level of the refusal, emotional and pragmatic potential. That's what our key phonetics school is studying. So we defined the emotional and pragmatic potential of each refusal utterance, high, middle, or low. Well, and it's worth mentioning that as we divided, as we grouped the utterances according to interrelation of socio-cultural speakers and listener status, it was necessary to give the definition of speakers' socio-cultural level. So according to the definition given in my work, the speaker's socio-cultural level was determined by the degree of her language competence, a set of knowledge and skills, means and techniques of communicative behavior, ability to adequately encode, decode information in its correlation with the specific situation and goals of communication. Well, and I prepared the examples. Well, the examples of utterances of dialogues which were analyzed in my work. So on this slide, you can see the example of intonation organization of refusal utterance actualized by the speaker of high socio-cultural level. So socio-cultural level was defined by linguists and phoneticians of our school and invited specialists also. So it was not only me who defined socio-cultural level, but the specialists who work on who study, who research social cultural aspects of language formation. So it's the example of the dialogue generated by speaker of high social cultural level, middle social cultural level, intonation organization of refusal utterances by the speakers of middle social cultural level, and low socio-cultural level. So all the examples were taken from the books from modern literature, American and British modern literature, and they were voiced by professional speakers. Maybe in my future work, we will analyze and we will compare the utterances pronounced in real life situations, and it will be interesting to compare the results of the study of real life utterances actualized in real life situations and utterances actualized by professional speakers. Maybe the next study will show the same results, or if the results are different, it will be interesting to compare them and to see what causes this difference. And it also will be interesting to compare, I think, the actualization of emotional types of utterances actualized by native speakers and non-native speakers, and the use of prosodic means or all language, the use of all language means which take part in the forming of an utterance. Well, and on this slide, well, you can see the model of the mechanism representing encoding and decoding of the utterance meaning in English dialect speech. You can see two spheres. The first one is marked as S and R. S is the sender of information or the speaker, and sphere R represents a recipient of the information or the addressee. And you can see the sphere in the middle, well, between these two spheres, well, O and its overlap area of the interlocutors' communicative cultures. Well, you can see that all language means take part in generation, encoding and decoding of the utterance. Well, the problem of correct coding and decoding of the utterance meaning has been controversial always. And it was studied by many linguists. So the aim of this part of work was the substantiation of the specificity of language means interaction and their influence on mechanism responsible for the sender's generation and recipient's perception of the information of any type of utterance. So the comparative analysis of interpretations and views existing in linguistic studies on the notion of utterance allowed us to formulate its the definition which I presented in the previous slides, and as is known, the choice of language means and speech genre is primarily determined by the speaker's subject semantic plane. This is the first stage of the utterance generation that determines its compositional and stylistic features. When it comes to grammatical structure of the dialect speech, it is the knowledge of situation that determines the generation. Well, a speaker can use a set of certain linguistic means represented by grammatical structures, as well as a number of extra-linguistic components. And extra-linguistic components are also presented on this picture. So it can be graphical, paralinguistic means, gestures, facial expressions, so different extra linguistic means. Well, the dialect speech structural organization is also characterized by significant grammatical incompleteness. Some parts of grammatically complete utterances can be omitted in the course of a dialogue and then replaced or understood, taking into account the situation. the situation, the context, and as I said, some extra linguistic features also can help to understand the omitted information which was omitted by the speaker in the utterance. So this phenomenon is well known in linguistics as the ellipsis or elision, the omission of certain linguistic elements. Well, and it is known that interaction of phonetic means with the means of lexical, grammatical, and syntactical language levels take place in any communicative process. So the occurrence of particular forms of such interaction is considerably determined by the extra-linguistic situation. So besides the phonetic organization of speech is influenced by the speaker's factor, whereas the speaker's individual peculiarities and psychological characteristics, such as his character type, age, gender, the level of education, professional, cultural level. So all these factors also affect the generation of the utterance. Well, so the adequate set of meaningful elements or phonetic meanings typical of the definite society's pronunciation culture is fixed in the native speaker's consciousness, depending on the existing levels or norms of the scope of variation of the speaker's individual cultures. So the successful communication takes place on the condition that the phonetic meaning coincides with communicative consciousness. While structuring this model, while structuring these two spheres, so the model, we considered the person's speech activity as dynamic, targeted, and intermediated by the language as well as determined by the communicative situation, ways of generation and perception of a speech message in the process of people's interaction. Besides, special attention was paid to the fact that the speaker and the recipient are linguistic personas who have generated traits of cultural and social environment, as well as personal experience, knowledge, thoughts, relations, etc. So, in the process of model formation, it was foreseen that these factors definitely influence encoding and decoding of the information in English dialect speech. Well, the analyzed well, it's worth mentioning that understanding of the utterance meaning depends on the complexity of its semantic syntactic structure and the level of person's speech development. Well, and it was also taken into consideration that the process of decoding of a word, phrase, or text always takes place in a context. So the context is one of the main things in the process of decoding information. So it influences directly the recipient's correlation of the subject matter as well as his or her choice of the utterance definite meaning out of the multitude of possible alternative meanings. So the context decides everything. Well, just a moment. Well, and on on the next slide, you can see the examples of cognitive models of refusal utterances. I presented cognitive models belonging to each class of reasons of refusal utterances. I cannot, I don't want to, I can, but I don't, I can, but I don't want to, I want, but I cannot. So all four classes of reasons are presented on the following websites. Well, and it's worth saying that an important feature of refusal utterance function in a dialogue speech is its cognitive nature. A cognitive nature of its generation, as well as considerable emotional loading on the addressee in the process of decoding the reasons of refusal. Well, phoneticians justify this by the fact that linguistics doesn't provide them with necessary models of cognitive mechanisms of refusal generation in the speaker's consciousness. So since cognitive processes are studied by interdisciplinary efforts, phoneticians can solve some of the urgent issues of the role of cognitive phenomena in the process of generating and actualizing refusal utterances. So as a result of the analysis, the number of cognitive models suggested by linguists and psychologists, we have chosen the pyramid-like model. So you can see that we presented the result in the form of a pyramid of the individual's thinking mechanism of speech generation and actualization. And it is divided into, well, into three layers. This model presented this model is presented as a complex four-leveled system of spheres of the addressee's spiritual life, comprising existential, mental, and transcendental three-layer leveled system. Well, the frame of the system is formed by three constituents. So you can see the communicative culture or culture of micro-society on the right. The addressee's self-appraisal of his social status and pragmatic intentions at the bottom of this pyramid, pragmatic intentions. So with this, within this system, which shows the spheres of spiritual life of an individual who utters a refusal and type of his or her thinking activities, there take place a self-development of all synergetic processes. And these synergetic processes and acts generating a refusal as a negative reaction are presented in the form of an attractor in each pyramid. So synergetic presentation of the origin, self-development and actualization of a refusal in the speaker's consciousness can be reflected on the model as a path of an attractor structure. So it allows us to perform a comprehensive description of a psychoenergetic mechanism of a refusal self-development in the person's psychic sphere in synergetic terminology. And let me show you the pyramids which represent all the types of classes of reasons. So you can see that this pyramid represents at the bottom of this pyramid is also pragmatic intentions, culture of micro society, and the status of the addressee. So all these factors influence the generation of a refusal utterance, but depending on different reasons and class of reasons, and depending on the context or the form of the utterance, if it's explicit or implicit, depending on the communicative situation, if it's formal or informal. So each speaker chooses different language means to express the refusal. Well, this pyramid represents class of reasons I don't want to. Well, we can see I'm not in a mood tonight for silver twilights or rose pink tones. I want to talk business. So this a refusal is uttered by the speaker of high social cultural level, and well, as a result of research, we can make a conclusion that the speakers of high social cultural level they express the emotional and pragmatic potential of their refusal utterances is within middle range. So it rarely is high. Well, it rarely has high emotional and pragmatic potential, and sometimes low, and well, usually low or middle emotional and pragmatic potential. But for speakers of low social cultural level, it's more it's more typical of speakers of low social cultural level to express the refusal, which can be which can consider it as a refusal of high emotional and pragmatic potential. And the class of reasons I can, but I don't want to. I will not do that. I will not do what you ask me. I will not. So we know from the context that that the speaker can help, but he doesn't want to, and he well, he expresses very very clear refusal with the help of words will not do, negative particle not, I will not, a repetition of phrases. Well, you can see the results of our works, of the works of our scholars of Kyiv Phonetic School on the website of our school. Just a moment, I will turn back to the beginning of my presentation, and there is the website. Well, terraludens.com. So if it's interesting, you can read the articles, scientific articles, books which are published by the scholars of our Kyiv Phonetic School. As I said, we study all types of emotional utterances. Our Professor Alakalita, she studies all emotional types of utterances, and her students, the scholars who start scientific career, so we choose usually we choose one several types of emotional utterances, and we study these types. Well, actually, that's the main idea, the main concepts of my work. So thank you for attention, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. I will be glad to answer.
Okay, thank you very much for your lecture today, and it is great. I mean, extremely interesting, and I'm sure that there are many questions. I have many questions about your work and about the model, your theoretical model and your approach. And it's so central for linguistic and verbal and non-verbal communication. What you said is so central for the analysis of communication. And So the lecture is now open to discussion, and we can use the chat box as well as always.
Should I stop the sharing in order to open the chat?
Yes, if you like, you can stop sharing and then you
Because
can
I don't.
yes, can see the
Yeah, now I
chat
can
box.
see the chat.
Okay, so I see that you I mean the center of your studies refusal utterances. Is there any particular reason why to choose, I mean, refuse and refusal utterances and not anything else?
No particular reason, because it's one of the it's a very widely used, oftenly used type of emotional utterances, and it was well, we use these type of utterances in our everyday speech, and well, there is it's very easy to find the examples in literature. So I could find a lot of these dialogues for the material of the study. And very interesting types of emotional utterances were being studied already by my colleagues from our school. So I decided to choose refusal utterances.
And perhaps they're very frequent or not I think you mentioned something about corpora at the beginning of your lecture that you have
1000,
yes.
1100, yeah. It's very widely used type of utterances.
Great. And of course we can use a chat for further questions. I have more questions, of course. I mean, the Kiev School of Phonetics in this model is very interesting, and I was wondering why to use why to say phonetic approach, let's say, and not a holistic or pragmatic approach, because I see that you take into consideration all aspects, grammatical, lexical, the context.
Yeah, actually, we take into consideration all language means, but we do experimental phonetic studies, do experimental phonetic works. That's why we call it phonetic study. We, in the process of the study, we did auditory analysis and acoustic analysis. Maybe I didn't tell about this because well, it takes a lot of time to tell about all aspects of these two types of analysis. So auditory analysis was made by the professionals, well, by the linguists of our school, representatives of our school, and acoustic analysis was made with the help of programs, computer programs, which analyzed the dialogues. So we didn't just choose the text dialogues. We cut it from the recordings. They are voiced dialogues, and we analyzed these voice dialogues with the help of programs SpectraLab, Prat, and WaveLab. So we did, and the results of acoustic analysis proved the results of auditory analysis, and after comparing the results of these two stages of analysis, we made the conclusions. Well, we made the invariant model, acoustic model, and well, invariant intonation model after auditory analysis and after acoustic analysis. Invariant model for all types of refusal utterances, and variant model, intonation model for each class, for utterances belonging to each class of reasons.
And I see that the intonation was present in your examples. You had some examples with intonation of the utterances, and what about other phonetic characteristics that you think they are important in this kind of analysis besides intonation? Or
no, we didn't just analyze intonation. We analyzed all segmatic and excuse me, it's the evening. I'm tired a little bit. segmental and suprasegmental levels.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm,
we analyzed all means of segmental and suprasegmental levels. So it's tone of voice, pitch, pauses,
mhm.
pre-head, tail of each of each utterance. So any possible feature, any possible characteristics of segmental and suprasegmental levels, not only intonation, even timbre. Even timbre was described by phoneticians, timbre
Mhm.
of the voice of the speaker.
Can you see any contrast between, I mean, when you have low and high social classes and sociocultural status, any contrast between the usage of, I mean, utterances that include I can't, and then, I mean, can you say that speakers of low or high sociocultural level have a tendency to answer I cannot, and then speakers of low or high sociocultural status have a tendency to choose the other way. I mean, I cannot instead of I.
Well, actually, it's necessary to analyze the whole dialogue in context. It's impossible to it's difficult to differ. I cannot uttered by the speaker of high social cultural level and low social cultural level. So we analyze all language means which were used, and usually the speakers of low social cultural level, they it's very easy to see the difference on the analyzing lexical and grammatical level, but when we analyze phonetical level, it's necessary to analyze in context. And for speakers of high social cultural level, well, it's typical to it's typical to use some repetition instead of using very clear refusal. They sometimes used some explicit refusal to reject the offer. Well, but well, the phonetic features, if we take just one simple word, it's very difficult to see the difference of one word or a small phrase.
We have time for questions and comments, so you can, I mean, people who are attending can use the chat box always.
I cannot see the questions in chat box.
And so, I mean, we have time, so if there are questions and comments, you're very welcome. I have another question. I mean, it's so interesting. What about scale of refusal or degrees? So how absolute a refusal? I see that you have your levels have to do with I cannot, I do not want. So probably with the justification of your refusal. But what about scale of your refusal? So I'm absolutely against that, or I'm somewhere in the middle of probably negotiating that or rethinking about it, and then
if the speaker hesitates or if he doubts, these type of refusal could belong to such types as I can but I don't want, I want but I cannot. That's why we created these two types, because speakers don't always express very clear refusal. That's why it was necessary to create this two middle classes of reasons. And while doing while excuse me, while creating that triangles which represent the speaker's emotions and his emotions in which take part in generation of the refusal, we also analyzed his social status, his the situation, the communicative situation, formal, informal, his the context and also his emotions. What influenced on this or that kind of refusal?
What about current and future plans of the Kyiv School of Phonetics? So what's next? I mean, or what are people there are doing?
We all work. We all work uh, on deepening our knowledge and research. And as I said, what's interesting to me to study is the difference between voiced utterances and dialogues uttered in real life situations. And I don't know if they will be different, but we might find some differences, I think, or they can be the same. So it's very interesting to study and compare these two types of speaking situations, so voiced utterances and real life communication.
So the method
Language
you're
means
using
and
right.
phonetic means that are used. Because when I was doing a research, I asked myself if I was in this situation, would I reply in the same way? If I'm the person of the same social cultural level, approximately, would I give the same answer? And the answer is often no, or maybe no, maybe yes. So I think it's interesting to compare real life communication and voiced uh, utterances.
So the method you're using right now is with recordings, videos, and you are
Yeah,
also using
auditory
program.
analysis, yes, and acoustic analysis with the help of programs, computer programs.
I see a question here from Elizabeth. How could we use the results of your study in translation? So what about other areas and other domains? The question here is about translation, perhaps. So what about application of your methods and of this, I mean, the Kyiv School of Phonetics, probably many applications of the results and of your studies
Well,
can be available.
since we are phoneticians, so the results
Mhm.
of our work can be used in teaching pronunciation, in teaching phonetics, in lectures, and teaching students pronunciation. And if you ask about the results of my research, since I study refusal utterances, well, we all know how to reject an offer. We know how to refuse, but we don't always do this in right way. I think the reason is our cultural differences. In different cultures, we refuse in different ways, and in order to teach the culture of refusal, if it's possible to say so, the culture of refusal. So the results of my work can be used, can be useful in order to, well, to improve the level, socio-cultural level of speakers.
Mhm. So second or foreign language acquisition and learning, and probably interpreting as well. Also the oral form, I mean, of translating from the one language to the other, or then even acting or theater. This can be important. I mean, phonetics can be important, as you said, in this
Yes.
kind of performance. So we have probably a couple of minutes for more questions and comments. Of course, then we are going to upload your references and the links, and we're going to use the Google folder and the website we are preparing, and people can find the references and the links and read more about the studies of the Kyiv School of Phonetics and about this model, and probably people can follow this theoretical perspective in future studies. So
Well,
we're
I can
going
say
to
that we study all aspects of language, while some representatives of our school study dialects, even British dialects. So there are a lot of interesting works.
There's another question here by Olya. For your future research of real-life refusals, what are you planning to use as your data? YouTube videos, TikTok, other kinds of...
Yes, this kind of material can be used, but I think that the most suitable the most suitable source of materials can be interviews, because in interviews there is, it's a real life situation, and the person is not prepared for the answer, and sometimes he is asked unexpected questions, and it's interesting to see what language means he can use, and to analyze the prosodic, the intonation, the intonation of his speech. So yeah, YouTube videos, interviews, and maybe if speakers, if people allow, maybe to record the real life conversations, but only if people give the permission.
It's a matter of permissions. And I mean, it's so interesting because you have the verbal and non-verbal aspects of refusals again. So, I mean, much information is including the non-verbal pauses or even silence. So
Yeah,
that
it's
can be
very
another
interesting.
dimension.
Yeah, a very interesting aspect of study, but I couldn't analyze nonverbal refusals because it was experimental phonetic study, and I cannot use. Of course, we analyzed these kinds of refusal in our work. We described these, but we couldn't analyze it with the help of programs, for example. So nonverbal refusal cannot be analyzed with the help of computer.
Great. Thank you so much for being here with us, for your
Thank you.
lecture, and we hope we will see you again, and of course very soon we hope we will welcome you to Athens for future events. And of course we continue next Wednesday. We have another webinar here, so again at 6 o'clock, and we are going to upload the references and the links you gave us. And thank you very, very, very much for accepting the
Thank you very
invitation.
much for inviting me and for allowing me to present the ideas and the concept, the ideas of our phonetics school. Thank you very much. Thank you for attention and for the invitation. And of course, if you invite us in the future, we will be glad to be present at such events.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
see
Yeah,
you.
thank you everyone. Thanks all visitors of viewers of our webinar.
See you next Wednesday.
Okay, see you. See you. Goodbye. Have a nice evening.